Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Listeners, I just got to start this episode out with just some gratitude. You know, Mike and I started this podcast, one, just for a way for us to connect. He's my best friend, been best friends since we met at USF, and just a great way for me to connect with him. And then we said, let's just help one person. That one person has usually been either him or me. And now all of a sudden, I don't know how, but we've had listeners tune in 44 countries and over 612 cities. And so I just want to say thanks for that. And any listeners out in Germany, I don't know how this is happening, but we've got a lot of people in Germany that are tuning in. That's the second most listened to country. And then Japan, we definitely got love for you too, because you're number 3. And I thought Spain would be up there. In Spain, you're number 4. But I have my daughter that lives in Spain, and I don't even know if she's listening to the show. But I just wanted to say thanks. And if you're new to the show, we welcome you. And I want to give just a little history. You know, this podcast is part of a nonprofit, and the nonprofit is called C4 Leaders. And we're the only nonprofit to utilize the pizza making process to create space for our companions to be seen, heard, and loved. We also write children's books, obviously host this podcast, and then use the most amazing handmade, hand-tossed sourdough pizza to bring out the best in each other. So you can check out c4leaders.org, or if you're interested in the books, pizzadays.org to support our important work. But let's get into this episode, because it's going to be like a roller coaster. Pasho and I got our lap belt on. We're ready to go. Richard has a lot of expertise in all different kind of spaces, and we're season 3, episode 29 with Richard Friesen, coming from San Jose, California. And first of all, the best place to find Richard is through his website, conversations with an S, plural, .money. Conversations.money. So about our guest, Richard works with professionals and business leaders who want to increase their personal effectiveness with joy and grace. And sometimes I get wrapped up in starting with these intros, and I'm getting goosebumps right out of the gate with effectiveness, with joy and grace. And you talk about essential ingredients. We're already dropping them right there, and why I'm so excited for this episode. His neuroscience-based mind muscles model gives his clients the opportunity to reach their goals with online training, simulations, interactive exercises, group support, and real-time decision processes. Richard has been a broker, floor trader, and built and sold a successful options trading firm and financial software company. He is also the inventor of 10 significant trading interface patents. This, combined with his master's degree in clinical psychology and neuroscience focus, brings a unique framework to business, investing, and career success. Richard is also the author of A Private Conversation with Money, and the book observes the main character, Joe, dealing with conflicts, self-sabotage, and belief systems around money and wealth. Richard, thanks for sharing your countless gifts with the world and for being our guest on Life's Essential Ingredients. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I so appreciate your style and how you interview. And I've listened to a couple, and I really think you're bringing a lot of value to the world. So appreciations to you.
All right. Well, we're excited. And listeners, you know how we do it. We always start with our thought of the day, which I've been using this technique, I don't even know how many years, 20 or so, for all the coaching and teaching that I used to do. And this one is from Epictetus. So a long time ago, and it's a shorter quote, but very deep. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Why would I pick that quote for you?
Yes. So one of the concepts that I work with with my client is a hole in the heart. In other words, when I grew up, I was missing some very, essentials in terms of my own emotional and my frameworks and how I grew up. So then what we do is we look to compensate. And we compensate by wanting things. And if we are compensating for something that's essential, then we end up with, what feels like an addiction, be it money, sex, drugs. And so the work that I do with my clients is, in terms of not wanting, there's a real subtle difference. And we can go into that so that you're not wanting to fill that empty spot in your heart, because that is a treadmill that no matter what you get, there's always something more. But to ask yourself now, after I go through my awareness, after I learn self-acceptance, I learn how to then ask, what do I want now, from a more solid base? And then what I want becomes a motivational, an aspirational force, that the process itself is based on a firm foundation. But if the quote is talking about trying to fill that hole in your heart, then that is a treadmill.
So Richard, I always take probably, I don't know, 5-6 pages of notes. So don't definitely, when I have my head down, don't think that I'm on my phone or something. I try
okay.
far away from that as I can. No, I'm listening.
Yeah, I'm used to rejection, Jeff, so I can handle it.
But I love, God, let's just explore that, your thoughts a little bit. And this is why I'm just so excited and love kind of our intro, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives. And you just talked about compensating for wanting things and having this hole in our heart and addiction. And obviously you, Mike, and I have lived a few years. Mike and I are both 54 years old. I'm 3 days older than him, and he gives me the business all the time.
Wiser. Yeah.
I'm wiser. I've never used
3 days wiser.
Yeah, I like that.
Oh, no, we're just going to stick with the older Richard. Forget the
wiser. but so I want to have you explore these thoughts here from, I guess we'll just use from a wiser perspective, and you have a couple of years on Mike and I, and you use the word addiction, and you use the words fill, the hole. How have you seen, and this is going to sound a little ignorant, because regardless of it's been radio, TV, newspapers, magazines, regardless of what the medium has been, to help us realize that there's this potential that we're compensating and seeing all these different ways of where we're lacking, and where perhaps that hole has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger now, since it's 24/7 in front of us, and so you can feel less than so easy just by turning onto your phone or getting on the internet and seeing everything that everybody else has, So I guess my question is, how can you put, history in context with the word compensate, just on a individual level? And then my second part would be, I love how you use the word process and firm foundation. And so how can we fill that hole and that lack of that so many of us are feeling? And one in, depending on what numbers you want to use, 1 in 3, 1 in 4 Americans are struggling with just mental challenges, I'll just say. And so I'm going to stop because I said too much. I don't know if I'm following, and you can take that any which way you want to go. But I know that's your expertise and your background. So just, explore those kind of thoughts.
Yeah, you've basically asked me for everything. So how much time do we have?
Hey, we got all day.
Okay, good. So the process that I start with is called the golden keys. And the first key is awareness. So, in fact, let's do that right now. I'm going to take a trip through my body and get my physical sensations. My stomach's a little tight. My shoulders are a little tight. My breathing's a little shallow. Okay, so I just did that. Now I'm going to take an emotional awareness right now. In fact, I invite everybody to do this along with me. Emotionally, I'm excited. I'm present. I'm curious. I'm feeling really optimistic about this interview and the relationship with you guys. So then the next thing is, what are the thoughts going through my head? And given that I need to come up with words, I'm paying attention to what you say, and then how can I amplify them and work with them to give your listeners value. So I just demonstrated the golden keys is awareness of our physical sensations, our emotions, and our thought process. So that's the first step. And what I'll often do is ask a client who experienced a traumatic, a stressful, a difficult situation in relationships or with money, is to go back to that time and then let's step into it, recreate it. Now I'll say, let's do an awareness. What do you notice? Oh, throat's tight, jaws are tight. I'm just furious. Go, go. Okay, stay with that. Exaggerate it. What are your emotions? I'm really angry. What are the thoughts? I just want to smash them. Oh. So then when we recreate it, then we can give that response a voice. If you had to give your situation right now a voice, what would it be? Be anger. Okay. May I have a conversation with anger? So by starting with the physiology and the emotions and the thoughts, we can then get to a part of themselves. And it almost turns out, almost always, that part of themselves started when they were very young. So we go back to that time. How was that created? What was the positive intent of that reaction? And now we can come to the point where we can start the healing process. So it's, awareness, and then acceptance of what we discover. If we're aware of something and we judge ourselves for it, darn it, I did it again. Oh, you idiot. It's not helpful. So awareness, acceptance, and then we develop agency. And agency is the ability to be aware of all that's going on, not be connected to a reaction, but then to make a decision and ask, okay, given that awareness, what do I want now?
But I love it. And just practical. I've gotten away. I love to read, and I got so many books that I on my to read list, and I'm reading a really good one now that I'm not going to get into, but I'm also reading Effective Neuroscience by Jaak Panksepp. I don't know if you've read that book, and it's the most difficult book I've ever read. And the font's like 6. And Jaak Panksepp was one of the first people to study emotions, and he described 7 of them and how it's so important to do the work and understanding like you're talking about. And I love neuroscience as well. My background, I worked for 29 years as a nurse. And so I'm fascinated with just the brain and the body. But I love how you talk about going back. And a lot of times, our youth, we can carry what I would say ingredients to relate it to our framework of using pizza, ingredients that have been in our life that perhaps we don't even know we're on our, and we've just continued to eat that pizza because it's just a habit, even though we know we don't necessarily like what that tastes like, but it's just kind of what we've done. And until we can have this self-awareness that you're talking about, I love how you put it into the context of the physical, emotional, and just the thought process. And then to take a step back and say, well, wait a second, my dad or my mom or my uncle, somebody put that ingredient on my pizza and I don't like it. And you know what? I want to make the choice to take that off now. It all starts with the self-awareness. I love how you use the word, the agency, and so yeah, I'm excited for this show because I think you're going to be able to help our listeners slow life down. And I know we've used the word wisdom, and I know you're a lot wiser than Mike and I, but the older I get, the more I realize the simpler I can leave, you know, all the other things in my life and just kind of leave those alone and just try and keep life simple. I feel like the the happier I can be. It's all these other things, which kind of ties into the quote, from our thought of the day. But yeah, I'm fired up. I can see my Pasho's fired up for this. But we always love to kind of let the listeners just kind of get to know you a little bit. And so you can take this question any which way you like. But what was life like growing up?
Oh, my father was an evangelical preacher. So, they don't make a lot of money. And so we grew up lower middle class, but we didn't know it. It was like, that's just the way everybody wasn't a problem. So I saw the inside of the sausage factory of religious infighting and personalities and all of that. And I went, and my mom was in my memory. Now, I don't trust my memory at all. That's another conversation, because our memories are recreated sometimes by tiny things, and then we just build them. But my memory is she was depressed and unhappy most of the time. My father was a narcissist, very self-absorbed. I never felt he paid attention to me. So I grew up, and my self-defense around that was to be absolutely okay to be the rock. I am a rock. I'm an island. It was that Simon and Garfunkel. And so as a result, it took some time for me to appreciate how I had self-isolated. And what is fascinating about that is I continued to choose situations that recreated that for my life. One of the models that I use is that our survival mechanisms, the ones we created when we were very young, that survival part of us says, okay, we survived XYZ. We know how to survive it. We're good at it. We've got skill at it. Now, we're going to step into something that's really a lot better. I mean, oh my gosh, we don't have to survive it. We can thrive and all that. And the survival mechanism says, And I've had the direct experience of sabotaging better things in my life because that survival mechanism said, we don't know if we can survive a real lot of hugs and loves and total support. Oh, no. We're going to go back and create situations where we know we can survive.
Yeah, no, in attaching it to a little bit of neuroscience. So basically your amygdala was just firing, and your default was go back into that space, which is what we do. It is our human nature, and our mind, 47% of the time, we don't remember things correctly.
I would say a lot higher than that.
Yeah, which is crazy in itself. When you think about that number, even if it is higher or at 47%, half the time at least we're not remembering. Let's just explore that. So how would you, if that is a true fact, and I've seen several research articles around that space, you've probably done the same thing. You have a lot more experience in that than I do. How would you, and I know you've already gotten into it, but how do we live this life then if we know that what we remember is probably not all the way true? And how can we just get into appreciating each day and maybe just having that awareness that you've been talking about, but then exploring, all right, well, what is today going to offer if I don't even really remember correctly what life was like before?
One of the biggest transformations in my life was reading a book. It's called The Book of Not Knowing by Peter Ralston. And he goes through the neurology of memory, of how we think about things, how we filter things. And I always was very positive. When I was an evangelical, I was absolutely positive. I carried my Bible to school. That was true. And then politically, when I was in junior college, Young Americans for Freedom, conservatism's positive, that was right. Then I went to college and saw the inner city and the pain of the inner city residents. Boom, I became very progressive and liberal. And that positive, that was true. Then I read Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged. I'm a libertarian. And man, we got to get rid of government. I was positive that was true. So then I go, can I be positive that Rich Friesen, the one out of several billion people, happens to be the person that has it absolutely right? What a relief to let go of that, to know that my memories are just fabrication, to know that how I filter my biases. I got a list of maybe 60 human mental biases. Oh my gosh. And I look and I check those against my own memory. I used to be a pilot, and I have a memory of a near fatal incident in an airplane when the mechanics malfunctioned. And I talked to my sister Wendy about it. Never imagine, if you talk to them separately, that those were the same incidents. Never. When I talk to couples, and I'll talk to the women and I'll talk to the man, and never would I guess that they're in the same marriage. So the relief of not knowing, of having to know, what this opens up is a huge ability to see things in a different way, to approximate reality without all the barriers and structures. And one of my concerns now in the book I'm researching and considering writing is healing the political divide. Oh my gosh. Talk about cultural, informational belief systems, epistemology, metaphysics. The differences are huge, and yet we're still human beings. So I guess the summation of this last little piece is, it is such a relief to let go that Rich Friesen needs to know the truth, that I am constantly creating models that approximate it. Models that work, reality will give me that. Models that don't work, reality will let me know that. And so I'm curious. I'm on a constant adventure to find models that work better for me and for those I love.
And that's beautiful. And yeah, I'm gonna have to read that book. Unfortunately, I add it to the list, and the book not knowing
that pile gets higher and higher.
Yeah, I love the title of that, but it kind of, and then you using the words, curious, and that leads me to listening, and I think, and then to tie it into healing the political divide, and I think if we could just listen better, and not interrupt each other, and give all people the space just to think their unthought thoughts. And so many times.
Yeah, but Jeff, I know the truth and they're wrong. And I just can't wait to interrupt them and let them know the mistakes they're making.
Exactly. It just goes back into our amygdala, and us probably trying to compensate for things where we haven't been listened to. And so now I get my voice. And then you talk about this.
Oh my gosh.
Divide, and it just it takes over the top in our brain. The average person speaks about 115 words per minute.
Mm-hmm.
They think 7 times that, so about 825 words per minute we're thinking. And then since we keep getting interrupted, we don't allow those thoughts that can heal the political divide and can help us take this step. Because maybe I sound naive, but I really feel like there is a way to overcome if we could just listen better. to each other and promise to just listen, which is a hard thing because you take all the listeners that are listening in to this episode. Where did you learn that? Even where was communication, taught, for people that have been blessed to be able to go receive an education, regardless of what level that is. But yeah, they're not skills that are taught. And so I think that's one way to really create a healing space. But I'll let you jump in there. I know you did a good job. You took a break. You jumped in a couple times and interrupted, but I think you were doing that just for the to play on to things. But let's go. I'm going to be quiet. My pasho is always so good. The eye candy for any listeners that are just tuning in on Spotify or whatever other platform. Tune in to YouTube. We have a channel, and my pasho looks good, and he is the best listener. Richard, go.
Oh my gosh. Part of my job as a coach is just to listen as people pour their hearts out, feel not judged. And also to listen to the parts of themselves, those internal voices, the subconscious. And sometimes this has happened. In fact, I just finished a blog on this. It hasn't published yet, of a case study. And that part of themselves that needs to defend themselves said, oh, I have never been really heard about what my fears are. So if we can listen. Now, to do that, if I am righteous, I know where you're wrong. Okay, I'm going to take some listening skills. What you're trying to do is put some symptoms on top of some underlying problems. But what if I, Rich Friesen, am able to look at you as a human being with all your own stuff that's going on and love you in the sense of just bringing out and listening to the issues that you have. And then all of a sudden, rather than proving you wrong, I can ask questions like, oh, what would you need to believe in order to have that belief about policy? Well, what is your biggest fear if the other side did something? What would you like in your own perfect world? So by eliciting those questions without needing to be right or wrong, I get a tremendous amount of information. But what that requires from me, and I'm still working on this, yes, I am, is that that my particular worldview, in fact, the solution that I've made for myself, and I'm working on this, I did a group for about 3 months, a wealth workshop. And in the wealth workshop, we worked on having the ability to listen and then having the ability to be open. And what we discovered was that our own biases, our own perceptions, our belief about the world, right and wrong, going all the way to childhood, really interfered with that. So the ability to listen, I think, is so important. And once you start down that path, it opens you up to curiosity, to openness, and I think to more love and discovery.
I love it. Well, we're going to talk off the air because I don't want to take time for this, but I will just mention it. So hopefully all three of us can remember to bring it back up. But, so our nonprofit, that's what we're trying to do is create space for all people to be seen, heard, and loved. And we're using this pizza making process. And one of the things I think you and I can partner up and collaborate because we're speaking the same language. You want to heal the political divide. Well, we're doing that with Pizza with Purpose, where we're getting ready to travel the country. And one individual is going to get selected to where we're going to just create this space where you're talking about listening and create an open space where we're going to create this space to allow people just to come together and again be seen, heard, and loved. And we're going to take this show on the road, so to say. We have this pizza truck that with beautiful wood-fired pizza oven on the back of it, and just bring people together. And I think when you create space with, food, family, friends, and fire, there's
Yeah.
something magical when you can get into
Yep.
there where everybody, their amygdala, their cortisol can quit firing and allow us just to be and to stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system, to allow our everything to just slow down and to tap into each individual's wisdom, to therefore say, well, let me be humble and curious, and let me just listen to see how I can change and grow and be part of this thing. And it's how we've evolved, as a species, that connection to be part of something bigger than ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's we're fired up about it. We're heading to Oregon and Washington next month, and so excited to see what's just going to happen and just to get into that. So I got really no idea, and we've done our California state here, but I got no idea what's going to happen. But I'm excited to sit back and listen and be part of it. But let's get back into the show. It is called Life's Essential Ingredients. And let's have you kind of walk through the listeners. I know you have a lot going on. You've got your hands in a bunch of different stuff. But on the personal side, how do you kind of make sure, one, let's get into what are your essential ingredients at this point in your life? And then two, how do you make sure you incorporate those into your life on the daily?
Yeah. Again, it comes back to the golden keys. The essentials for me are awareness, self-awareness. If we're not aware of what's going on internally, well, then we just have repeated, you bring up the amygdala, all the survival reactions of the lower level animal concepts that or belief systems that keep coming back, our early traumas, our early beliefs. So without awareness, it's difficult to move forward. And I would call that the prime number one essential. And the second part is, if you beat yourself up by what you discover, it's not very helpful. So I say, like the other day, I snapped at my wife. Oh my God. What's going on, Rich? Oh, I'm feeling defensive. Oh, defensive about what? So then I could see that there's something in my life that I wasn't fully accepting myself, that I needed to put something up. And when she went over that barrier, right away, make the make a reaction. So awareness. And then when I noticed that, I said, oh, that's fascinating. I said to my wife, look what I did. Isn't this interesting? I still have this old thing from childhood. Fascinating. So you talk about neurology. We have neural connections, like when you learn to drive a car, the first, and I'm going to age myself here, you pull the gear shift forward and then you put it down, you have the clutch in, you let the clutch out. So, but after a while, I can drive down a freeway and have a talk about psychology, for example, at the same time. So what happens is those neural connections weren't connected. And then after repetitive usage, they become more connected chemically. I mean, this is a physical thing. So when you're creating a new behavior, you have those old reactions, they're primed. The electrical impulses are well wired there. And now we're trying to create something new. So what is the experience of creating something new? And one of the exercises I have some of my clients do is, I'm left-handed, so I would take my right hand. But if you're right hand, you take your left hand and ask them to write their name. What's that feel like? Well, this is exactly what it feels like when you're trying to create a new behavior, because those neural connections aren't there. So for me, for example, to continue my morning exercises, I say, okay, the only thing, Rich, you got to do this morning is just do your cat stretches, up and down, just keep your black fat. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do the rest of them. So I do these, and before I know it, I've completed my routine. Or I had a guy who didn't want to go running. He resisted running every morning. So I says, okay, don't worry about it. Just put your shoes beside you on the floor. That's it. and don't give yourself crap for not running. Give yourself, oh, I put my shoes on the floor beside me. Okay, we've made a little neural connection there, teeny one. Okay, put the shoes on. Okay, we've made another. And we do that for 2 weeks, just putting the shoes on, another neural connection. And then we can keep moving forward, adding neural connections until, for me, not doing my exercises in the morning feels really weird. I mean, sometimes I'm not even thinking about it, but I lay out my mat and all of a sudden I'm doing my exercises and my mind is totally somewhere else because those neural connections have really grown. So the benefit of thinking about new behaviors or old behaviors that don't serve us in terms of neural connection, no blame, no shame, but it's like going to the gym. And if you think about it with that model, then you can start thinking about how do I create that first little synapse, that first little gap, and have that electrical impulse flow over it.
Love it. I love it. I love just I don't want to use the word baby steps, but I'm going to use it. I love the baby steps and setting yourself up for success. And,
yes.
and we're so hard on ourselves that, I love how you just say, hey, just put the shoes there and great. That's a dub, for that day. And listeners, if you're just listening and not watching, Richard's using his hands and he's connecting the neural connections that are going to get stronger and stronger and create the pathway that is going to allow us to take the next step. And speaking of next step, first of all, I just want to congratulate you for getting your book out. And again, the best place to find Richard is just through his website, conversations.money, and his book, A Private Conversation with Money. Let's get into that. And first of all, congrats for writing it. And how did it feel to get that accomplished and to get your author's proof and just give yourself that bit, take that baby step and yes, I did it. And it was awesome.
Yeah. And in fact, if you go to conversations.money, in fact, I'll start a special website for you that will give your listeners the ability to get a free online course that goes with the book.
Thank you.
In fact, I'll just bring it up right now and I'll do my admin so I don't forget. So, the book started out as kind of a Socratic dialogue with like a script. And Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, took one look at it and gave it 2 thumbs down. So 4 editions later, or 4 major revisions later, it finally got out. And if your listeners go to conversations.money/life, LIFE, I just texted the admin and she will create a special web page for your listeners where they get the free online course that's with it. But it was, it's like anything else. The first one is difficult. You have all the technical issues. You have the how you're going to write it, what you're going to include it. I hired an editor, the final editor, and she deleted 1/3 of the book. I'm the author. Every word is precious. Oh, no. But it made it much better. So the whole process. And then I had a lot of fun. I did the audio recording myself. I listened to a bunch of samples of other people. And I thought, this would be a great experience for me to do it myself. And I really enjoyed that.
So let's get in. So I know it's, experience the 10 keys to financial freedom. We definitely got to tap into your expertise that way. Share whatever parts of the book. I know the whole thing's amazing, I'm sure, but to get the listeners fired up and to want to get out there and support you in that way.
So I've had about 20 years of coaching in the financial markets. I built a trading firm. I coach traders. I coach traders now. And the nice thing about traders is you get immediate dollar feedback. For career-minded people, for others, for entrepreneurs, that feedback comes slower. But the same underlying principles apply. So I took all the issues every client has ever had and condensed them into a fellow named Joe. He's a writer for a number of blogs and publications. He's very progressive. He's conflicted around money and meaning and wealth. And as a result, his life is in the crapper. So a personality called Money visits him in the middle of the night, says, "Hey, wake up, Joe." It scares the crap out of him. But they start to have the dialogue that I originally started with. And Joe fights money every step of the way. And the reason for that is if you are in a context of your own struggle with money, I don't want to just hammer you. I want you to experience what Joe experienced as he came along. So that's the thesis of the book. And it also has an appendix, which has more of a condensation of the major precepts and principles. So it is written in story form, and the feedback on Amazon is all just wonderful. So I encourage you to do that. For people who are easy with money and meaning and wealth, they're going to just be, oh yeah, of course. But this is for the people who are struggling financially, who are good-hearted people who think that money is the root of all evil. That's, the Bible verse that I grew up with, money is the root of all evil, and who believe that money will corrupt them or corrupts others. And all these conflicting messages, especially with our current cultural divide. This is the book that will invite you to open a door of peace and meaning and money, wealth, success.
I love it. I love it. I don't know how anybody could not want to read that. So yeah, again, listeners, conversations.money. And we'll put in the show notes the course that Richard is generously donating to us, and it was that /life. But I'll put that in the notes here. And I know in your bio you talk about, when you're coaching your clients, one of the things that you do is help with real-time decision processes. And I'm always fascinated with any kind of process, but let's explore, both sides of that. Just real-time decision processes and exactly what you mean by that. And then on the other side, just overall decision making. Are there, outside, of the financial sector that perhaps you're talking about in your bio, though I don't know or not, you'll be able to answer that for me. And then just the life of helping people make decisions, because I think it's hard to make decisions. There's so much out there. So any tips that you could give the listeners on enhancing that process?
Yeah, and again, it comes down to the core awareness. Okay, let's say you ask me to make a decision right now. Ooh, just as tight stomach. I've screwed up so many times before. What if I make the wrong decision? I can hear my dad's voice back there criticizing me for previous decisions. Or what am I going to tell my wife? She's not going to like this. Oh, I've got to make a decision right now. Oh, Jesus, what am I going to do? So if we're aware of that process in real time, then I can say, wow, do I have a lot going on in there? Do I have a lot of ways to screw up my decision process? For example, I'm finishing up a blog now, and in it, a client built a business specifically to sell it to a large international company, worked for 10 years, just did everything. He knew exactly the criteria that the buyer would like. He knew exactly what he needed to do, and he just was making that key to fit right in. Bingo, 10 years, 12 hours a day, growing the company. He did it. Negotiation table, he started screwing it up. He started to put sand in the gears. And that's when he called me. Said, what's going on? And in this case, it was the deepest identity level. I don't deserve this. I deserve to struggle. I deserve to work hard because I'm not worthy. So for him to actually complete, for him to do the struggle was where he really shined. But to reap the rewards, his survival mechanism did not know how to step out of the struggle and into success. So real-time decision processes was when you're at the negotiation table, something's going on, and that reaction is, no, that's not, we're not going to do that, whatever, is to take a breath. Oh, I'm noticing this voice in my head that wants to fight back immediately, that wants to struggle. Well, that's interesting. Where does that come from? It comes from my need to struggle. Okay. Oh, now that I'm aware of that, what would I like instead? I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing to step into the unknown of success. And I'm willing to experience the stress that might, or the discomfort that might create. So real-time decision process is, again, is awareness, acceptance of what we discover, asking what I would like now. So what we're doing is we have all these reactionary things that kind of take control of us from our survival, our amygdala, as you mentioned earlier, and allowing them to be. Now, what's really cool is once we have this awareness, it develops agency. So that just like the neural connections of driving, when we practice it enough, eventually it becomes the command center.
I love it. I love it. I'm sure you're familiar with James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. And
yes.
And I created this one kind of thought, one sentence: build a habit to create intention to live your purpose. And kind of what you're just talking about. We all have that, and we can all take that step. And just I keep just taking, and you keep bringing it up, and hopefully the listeners are taking it in, and you use the word core several times, and just the self-awareness, and just vital towards helping us just create whatever that life is that we're searching for. That self-awareness, and then the kindness, you haven't used that word, but the kindness to just give ourselves when we are being aware that we're not being kind, and then choosing to develop the agency to acknowledge that and let it go, and then to take action towards creating, space for us to be, happy and experience joy. And I guess that's my next question that I have for you. What is that for you, and how do you help your clients identify that? We've talked about kind of this lack of self-awareness, but let's get onto the good stuff here. What is joy and happiness for you? And again, how do you help your clients identify it and develop it, and then hopefully share it with the world?
This gets into a much deeper conversation, culturally, spiritually, psychologically. But joy and happiness are not a goal, but they are a result of, I believe, meaning. Viktor Frankl wrote a book on meaning. He was in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. And what he noticed was those who had meaning, who had a bigger life, who had deeper vision, were the ones that tended to survive, and those that were more just concerned with minute by minute didn't. And I believe that in our culture right now, meaning that is bigger than ourselves is constantly shifting and hard to hold on to. So I believe that creating the deeper meaning, and I'm 76 this year, and I'm looking at the rest of my life and what I can do and what I can't do. And that's something I'm working on right now, because I've always had a vision of things bigger than myself, and that's kept me going and motivated. And right now I'm looking at how at my age now do I develop meaning. And one of the things I have is family. and the investment. And I owe my wife a tremendous amount of appreciations for what she's done to create a family that is loving. And you mentioned kindness. Oh my gosh, kindness to ourselves, kindness to others. Oh, that is so powerful. So I bring myself up just as an example to say that it's not one time, one thing, but it's constantly evolving for us to look for and create things that are higher, bigger, and more meaningful for ourselves, so that we have something to work for. Especially if I look at men today, I look at the work that people like Jordan Peterson are doing and the tremendous attraction he's getting is, what is the guardrails? What groups are providing a culture, a behavioral system, asking us continually to look higher and be better? And I think that is the foundation for what is then experienced as happiness and joy.
I love it. And I agree with everything that you shared. And yeah, we have everything inside us, and I'm not a big tattoo guy, but my wife and I did the Camino de Santiago. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's called the Path of St. James, and it's this spiritual kind of transformational walk that goes on in Spain that people have been doing since the 9th century. And there's roughly 400,000 people that take this journey each year. There's people doing it right now from all over the world. And you find your way with these scallop shells are everywhere. And then this yellow arrow. And there's obviously maps, but we go, and when we did it, we didn't have any Wi-Fi. So we needed to rely on these arrows and other people. And so I got that. It changed my life, and I have this little tattoo on my wrist that says Buen Camino. And what that means is, when you're on this journey, you're in this space and you run across people and you say Buen Camino, and you might only share 5 minutes or 5 seconds or 5 hours with the person, but you're really wishing them well. You're wishing them this kindness. You're wishing them that they hope they find on their journey what it is they're seeking. And then so I have the scallop shell below that Buen Camino that represents strength, courage, and hope. And again, you share those words and you share that space. And then underneath that, I have this yellow arrow. And I could have put the arrow going any which direction, and I put it kind of towards my inside, just as a reminder that we have everything that we need inside us. It's just sitting there waiting to be shared with the world. If we can create this self-awareness, if we can create this world where we can all listen to each other and create space to be seen, heard, and loved, and then use that. And you've used the word foundation often in this conversation. Use that as our foundation for just how we're going to live each and every day. That's the world that we want to live in. That's the world that C4 Leaders wants to help create. That's the world that these books and this Pizza with Purpose actions that we're taking wants to get out and be influenced by the people that we get to serve and the people that we get to listen to hopefully then kind of reinforce the joy and happiness that we get to experience each and every day. And so it's an honor to get to spend time with you. And I love, everything that you're sharing and everything that you're doing, and love how you shared that you're 76 and still trying to figure life out. And
yes,
I told you, Mike and I are 54, and I still don't have a clue, exactly. And even just, a few days ago, I wasn't in tears, but I'm just like, man, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And is there a way to do it better? Am I, serving, people that I need to be out and experiencing life with? And what expense does that come, with my family? And it's just, life is tough, and just trying to figure out, all the,
Okay, can I stop you for a minute?
sure.
Say that again. Life is tough.
Yeah, life is tough and just trying to figure out.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you to rephrase that and reframe it. Life is a
Oh,
fascinating journey with no blame and shame. Try that.
yeah, definitely. Life is a fascinating journey with no blame and shame.
How does that feel?
It definitely feels better than life is tough. My
Okay, so you brought up language earlier. Language is really important. The thoughts we think and the words we use. So I just encourage you when you come up with something like life is tough to rephrase it and reframe it into something that is more uplifting.
Yeah, definitely. I can do that.
Okay.
I can do that. But sometimes for me, and I'm going to contradict a little bit, and then you can kind of coach me up here.
Okay.
But sometimes I think, and this is just my mind, and this would be probably off the air. We could talk about it more because I don't want to bore the listeners and take up too much time. But sometimes I think we got to let things marinate just a little bit, not enough to bring us down, but enough to have that awareness of, am I making the choices that are going to allow me to get into this positive space? And for me, yeah, I catch myself occasionally, doing that, of like, hey, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And yeah, these decisions are tough because I got one shot at this thing that we call life.
You
And
got one shot. Life is tough. You got to get it right. How does that feel? What if, my God, I'm going to make a decision? Oh, I'll correct it. It didn't work out. Okay, I learned something from this. Wow, I'm really curious about what happened if I decided it this way. Oh, that's what happened. Fascinating.
no, I like that, and I I do that. My passion is cracking up. I definitely will do that eventually, but yeah, occasionally I'll catch myself, man, how do I work through this? And so yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I'll work on staying more positive and work on.
I will step into a world that's more positive because it just feels so good. If you say, I'm going to work, right away, we're setting up an internal struggle. And I may be pushing you harder than you want, but this is what I do with my clients when I hear they're setting themselves up for struggle.
Yeah, no, I hear, here goes my pasha. My pasha
Uh,
wants to chime
I
in.
was just wondering, Rich, if we could set up coaching for Jeff.
Okay.
If we could set that up right, that'd be perfect. He definitely needs that. He's tough on himself. And I like how you framed that all, man. Beautiful. Thank you for that. Definitely what
Okay.
he needs to hear.
Yeah, we can point out all the mistakes he made and everything he's done wrong as a way to motivate him to be a better person. Or
Uh,
we could just love him and kindness and invite him to a world that feels so much better.
I like that. And speaking of love, I'm gonna change it up a little bit, and we got two more, and then I think we'll let you get on with your day. But yeah, we've talked a little bit about reading, and I'm sure you're constantly reading books. But what books? And you thrown out one or two, but are there any tips of books that the listeners, should they want to just challenge themselves in a good way to learn about money or learn about life, what books do you recommend right now?
Well, you brought up one, Atomic Habits, and that's excellent. Uh, the Book of Not Knowing is a really hard slog because everything we grasp on for our safety, he is inviting us chapter after chapter to let go of. So that's a tough book, but for those who are really interested, you can do that. Uh, Geez, there's just so many books I've read. Given my short-term memory, nothing comes. I could look at my, I got my green screen up, so I can't look at my library.
I know
But
those.
I'll send you a link if you want to drop it into the text box of the video.
Yeah, no, that would be great. All right, hey, I think we're at a great time to get in. It's titled under like a legacy, but John Alston has a great quote that I love. The only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind. You're a young man of 76. Hopefully you have another 20, 30 years in you. And I don't want to sound too morbid, but I want to fast forward to you're on your deathbed and you're surrounded by the people that you love and that love you, and you're getting ready to take your last breath. What is it that you want to know in your heart as you're taking that last breath that you're leaving behind?
Gosh, to leave the world a better place than I found it, in terms of love, acceptance, in terms of how we treat ourselves and how we treat others. I have a list. I've about 50 personal characteristics that I think that if everyone followed, the world would instantly be healed, instantly. And so in working on the next book, Healing the Political Divide, I realized that it's not political, it's not cultural, it's really what we believe about ourselves and our own honor and behaviors that we bring to the world. And once that is, assume that everybody adopted that, then politics and culture and conflict just disappear. So it's really, a spiritual journey. It's a transformational journey in each of us, that'll make a difference. And that's one of the things I appreciate about this program and what you're doing is you're doing your part. And if everybody does their part, oh my gosh, the world will never be perfect. Humans will never be perfect. But man, can we make a significant improvement.
Hashito, get us out.
Wow, Rich, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you, and we've been enlightened. I appreciate that, and I love that. Just do your part. I'm going to do my part today, every day. Thank you. Appreciate it. And thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, listeners, again, season 3, episode 29, Richard Friesen. Find his book and his blog and everything else about him, conversations.money. Again, you can use that, conversations.money/life. And he's going to give us a gift with access to one of his courses. If you're interested in getting coached up with Richard, and obviously he's got so much wisdom, definitely reach out to him. You can get all of his contact through his website, conversations.money. With that, Richard, do you have any closing comment, or are you good?
No, I just give you an appreciation, you and Mike, for allowing each of us are individually to come forward, to shine, to play off of each other, to develop. I mean, oh my gosh, what if all conversations were like this? Wow. And so I appreciate your modeling and what you're doing and your contribution to making the world a better place. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jeff.
It's our pleasure. And listeners, thank you. We can't thank you enough. And you know how we do it. Boom, baby. That just happened. We out.